get into this next story, which is Phil Perry from NBC Sports Boston. He's a longtime Patriots reporter. He suggested that the Patriots should go all in to try and deal with their lack of a wide receiver one on the roster that they did not deal with through the draft or through free agency, and go for Bucks receiver Chris Godwin. So this I felt like was kind of a random player to bring up, but he made some really good points because I think a lot of people were so focused on Mike Evans since he was going to be a free agent this year. And of course, we know that didn't last long. The Bucks made a wise decision in re-signing him, I believe, to a 3-year deal. So he never really became a free agent. He was never a real target for the Patriots because he was never available to be a target. So that leaves Chris Godwin. So Perry mentioned that the Bucks just drafted Jalen McMillan out of Washington, who was Jalen Polk's teammate at UW. And him and Godwin play very similarly. So he was saying this could be a basis for the Bucks moving on from Godwin. Not just that, but also they are currently over the salary cap for the 2024 season. And if they trade, or I'm assuming he means trade, Godwin after June 1st, they would then save $7 million in cap space just by trading Godwin. We know that the Patriots currently have around $50 million in cap space remaining, and that's more than enough to sign their entire draft class. And then have some left over for the season in case something happens, and to sign more players ahead of the year. So they have enough money to pay for Chris Godwin this year and in a couple years if they want to. Perry did say that, to most teams, Godwin might not be considered a real wide receiver one, but that he would instantly be that guy in New England. And I agree. I mean, he's a really good player. He had, I don't remember if it's 3 or 4 back-to-back or consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And we have to take into consideration that he was playing often behind Mike Evans. So the fact that he was still able to record those impressive numbers with Mike Evans doing the exact same thing, because Mike Evans, I think, has been in the league for 10 years and he's hit 1,000 yards every single season, is impressive. So I think that Godwin would be a solid addition. And I think it would depend on what the Patriots would have to give up for him, which is not something that Perry discussed. But if they're trying to just get rid of him, I would assume that it probably would just be like a mid-round pick. I don't know that many teams would be willing to give up, a second or third rounder for Chris Godwin at this point. He's 28 years old. He has, people don't put him in like the upper ranks of receivers. So I think that if they were trying to get rid of him, 4th or 5th rounder, maybe even later, I don't know. I am not a great evaluator of trades. But I kind of like the idea of Godwin being a Patriot. It had been something that was considered, I think, over the last couple of years. There was someone teased the idea of that potentially happening, and it might make sense now because we know that even though they drafted Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, there still isn't a clear top guy on the offense, at least in the eyes of most people. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen once Polk, once Baker, once, KJ Osborne, Kendrick Bourne, once they all get back, Demario Douglas get back on the field. So one of those guys could emerge as the top guy. But if we're looking on paper, people assume there isn't a top guy. The only way the Patriots can do that right now is through a trade, because they didn't draft a top guy. They took Drake May in the first round, and they didn't then trade up to get one of the top 3, top 5 receivers. So they're either going to have to do a trade this year, or they're going to have to do it next year. So Godwin is certainly an interesting idea.